With Week 13 of the 2024 NFL season finishing up on Sunday, it opens the final month of the regular season. And there are many teams that are hoping to push their playoff hopes into the green. Meanwhile, there are other teams that will be pushing their playoff hopes into next season. Want to find out which teams are going to be in the green and which teams have already started singing hymns of Christmas? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Pro Style.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dirk! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, you're driving me nuts!
But behold.
Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for joining us yet again on this holiday Sunday version of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Again, you are joined by me, Mr. CeeLo. And once again, if I haven't said it to you enough, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys are doing great. We've been hit by some cold weather and it swept the country, you guys. So I hope you guys are nice and bundled up. It's not quite warm in my studio here, but hey, it's comfortable, more comfortable than other places I've been. As I said, I hope you guys are doing great. Don't really have much on the comment front. You guys have been relatively quiet. I hope you guys are safe and are keeping warm and enjoying the content. But we got to get back to the normal activity of covering great NFL football. But let's start with some news as 49ers placed running back Christian McCaffrey and Tre Mason on IR. As many of you heard, Christian McCaffrey left last night's game and in a non-contact injury, and most of you know when that happens, it's generally not good. Now it's being said that it's a torn PCL, which will effectively end McCaffrey's season along with Tre Mason. This pretty much, as I will do a show later on, show you what it will do to the 49ers' future in 2024. But as I said, running back Christian McCaffrey and Tre Mason lost for the remainder of the season. We want to send our deepest condolences from the 2GPS family to Trent Williams. They had a stillborn son, and I know in a world where we love football and we love to talk about the things of football, we always got to remember that these players are still human beings. And we give a heartfelt condolences to you, Trent Williams, because you are one heck of a football player, and we hope that you can return to the gridiron soon, and our deepest heart will go with you and your family. As a guy that has 2 babies of his own, nothing brings more joy than my babies, but at the same time, our heart goes out to you, and we hope that you guys can find peace with this situation and turn it over into God's hands. Also, Saints quarterback / tight end / running back Taysom Hill has now been officially ruled out for the remainder of the season with a torn ACL, effectively ending his season and more than likely ending the Saints' season with Mr. Do-It-All, the Swiss Army knife type of guy he is. And this is an unfortunate incident for the Saints. Had just gotten him back, and really outside of Alvin Kamara, he's really the only guy that can gives this offense any kind of a semblance of an offense, if you will. The Saints are really going to miss him, and more than likely it's effectively going to end their season, So with those headlines being spoken about, let us get into week number 13 and go through the results. See who's up, who's down, and out. Chargers 17, Falcons 13. As this game was nothing short of to see how bad Kirk Cousins could give the football game away to Los Angeles Chargers. You know, looking here, you see, I said on the pre-show that if the Falcons figured out they needed to run the football, they'd win this game. Bijan Robinson had 26 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown.
Run.
The Falcons still managed to throw the ball 39 times, and Cousins provided 4 interceptions.
Bruh.
Dumb shit.
I'm sitting here wondering to myself, why in the world would Kirk Cousins be throwing the football that many times? And it just occurred to me. The Falcons are like the Ravens. They just can't get it figured out. They don't know what they want to be. And when you don't have any form of an offensive identity, bad things happen. And until the Falcons get some semblance of an offensive identity, they're going to continue to lose. That's just the bottom line. And it's nothing that the Chargers have done. And I mean, listen, you can't say there's a bad 8-4 team, but I'm going to put the Chargers in the same boat as I put the Chiefs. It's not necessarily the Chiefs have figured out ways to win games. I'm tired of hearing that narrative. I think it's more along the lines of the teams that the Chiefs play make enough mistakes that they can capitalize on. Not saying that doesn't count, but what I'm saying is when you overinflate someone, then the real, it's like the real Slim Shady, please stand up. And ultimately, that's what's going to happen. The beatdown the Bills gave the Chiefs ain't just about Mahomes and the Chiefs escaping. You got 3 teams that are at the top of their division, or one team's not at the top of their division, but you got a couple of teams that are really frauds. And I'm going to talk about frauds on my other show when it comes to certain college football teams and certain college football analysis. But ultimately, you look at the Chargers numbers and they're not impressive. They don't jump out at you. I mean, you look at this team statistics. You look at the Chargers had 10 first downs to Atlanta's 24.
God damn.
The Falcons ran 77 plays to the Chargers 46.
What the
The Atlanta Falcons nearly doubled the yards output that the Chargers had. Yet they lost this game by 4 points. And you know where the difference came into play? The 4 turnovers. And you guys know that one of those interceptions went for 6. So arguably, you can throw 4 interceptions. And this is where I look at this Chargers team and I say, when they lost J.K. Dobbins the last week, that was not only a huge blow for their offense, but it was a huge blow for their identity. You look at this game and you say, there's not anybody. Now it's going to go, there's not anybody in the backfield. Now Justin Herbert's got to revert back to Justin Hero. Chargers 17, Falcons 13. As I said, was not impressed with the Chargers as much as it was. Kirk Cousins was just bad. Bijan, as I said, had 102 yards on the ground. Ray McLeod had 4 for 95. Drake London, 9 for 86. And once again, Kyle Pitts did not record a catch at all. When are y'all going to trade him? Pathetic. They find ways to get Brock Bowers the ball in Las Vegas. They find ways to get Brock Bowers the ball in Vegas, and I just don't get it. I guess the best thing you could hear was the Falcons did get to Justin Herbert 5 times. Arnold Ebiketie 2 sacks. And this is just, Raheem Morris is going to have to get some things accomplished. And I'm not saying that Michael Penix is the guy on deck, but if they get to a point where they're not in this race anymore, which they would have to lose the next 3 more than likely, and Tampa Bay would have to win the next 3, then you could think about Michael Penix. I think it's kind of premature to think about that. And probably one of the more fun games of the day was the 44-38 Steelers win over the Cincinnati Bengals, and effectively ending Cincinnati's run at another spot in the playoffs. Now, I will say, this is, people are going to say Joe Burrow can't do this, can't do. Burrow got stripped twice, and one of them went back for 6. And I remember hearing somebody, I think it was either Mike Wilbon or Tony Kornheiser, say, this defense is just bad. Well, here's the thing. You gave up 7 on a scoop and score. That ain't on a defense. So at some point, yeah, I get it. Russ had 414. But you did spot them 7. And then you threw an interception. And then you actually had another fumble. Burrow had 3 turnovers in this game. So the problem is we're neglecting to see that aspect. Now, am I sticking this whole thing on Joe? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is this. Before we start sitting here just pointing out Lou Anarumo and his defense, let's not forget Joe gave up a scoop and score. He put the ball on the ground, and then he threw a pick. So you can't absolve Joe because he threw for 309 and 3 touchdowns. Was sacked 4 times. Chase Brown's been a good change of pace for the offense. He had 14 carries for 70 yards, and I've argued that maybe they need to let him touch the ball more. But this is hard considering the amount of time Cincinnati actually touched the ball. You're looking at Russell Wilson with 29 of 38, 414 and 3 scores. Najee Harris had 75 yards on the ground with a score as well. George Pickens, 3 catches, 74 yards, a touchdown. Whom had a talking to the press, I would say, by his coach, Mike Tomlin. Pat Freiermuth had a good game, 6 for 68 and a score. Jaylen Warren, 4 catches for 55. And it was really different seeing Cordero Patterson finally playing with the Chiefs. But you go back and you look at how this game was won, looking at the team statistics, you've got the first down's pretty much even, 28-25. Total plays, Cincinnati ran 9 plays fewer, but the Steelers had almost 145 yards more. That's a huge difference. And you're talking about running the football, they're pretty much even, but then it was where they were throwing the ball, which is Burrow's wheelhouse. And then you've got the 3 turnovers, all 3 of them by Joe Burrow. You cannot win like that. And as good as Joe's been, you can't turn the football over like that. I mean, I get it. The defense is not great, but you can't sit here and say when you spot them 3 turnovers that they're responsible. There's got to be some changes here as far as protections. There's got to be some things that I think that Cincinnati needs to run more draws and a little bit more misdirection. And I just think right now you're building for next season. You're pretty much done. I don't know, and there's going to be a lot of questions in the near future as to whether or not Joe and Jamar and these guys need to play the rest of the season. I think ultimately you need to be trying to figure out a way to re-sign T. Higgins. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, you won this game, but I'm going to be honest with you. You can't keep winning like this. If you're Mike Tomlin, you like the win, and you'll go to the press conference and you'll say all the right things, but ultimately you got to be knowing in the back of your head you can't keep winning like this. Steelers 44, Bengals 38. Vikings 23, Cardinals 22, and I'm going to tell you something. This was one of those games that you just looked at and you said, oh my goodness, no, not the daggum Vikings are going to have this start their downward spiral. And they don't. They just keep winning. It was 9-6 at the half, and then all of a sudden the Cardinals came out and they basically went up 19-13. And all of a sudden you see these two defenses slowly starting to make plays, and it was a classic case of you're not doing what you normally do. And I mean, I'm looking at Murray, and Murray just made, I don't want to say he made bad decisions, but it was just like it's not in his character. You looked at Sam Darnold, 21 of 31, 235, 2 touchdowns, but he was sacked 5 times. So you're seeing this Arizona defense finally doing something that a lot of people wish they would have done a few years ago, and they're finally starting to get some semblance of a pass rush. Kyler Murray was only sacked once, but he threw 2 costly interceptions. He was 31 of 45, 260 yards. And he also put 1 on the ground. Aaron Jones had a costly fumble, well, nearly a disastrous fumble. And then not to mention he had 1 in the end zone that people were talking about, but he did redeem himself on 1 of those grabs. But I just looked at this game, and Sam Darnold is just looking so much like the first round pick. And it's got to have Vikings fans wondering, when do we start J.J. McCarthy? Do we just ride this one out? I say ride it till the wheels fall off. I mean, I wouldn't even rush J.J. McCarthy back next year because, honestly, I'm not sold on him. It looks to me like this is Sam Darnold's situation. Just saying. Viking fans, you might want to cuddle up with him because I think this is the guy. I think he's finally found his spot. James Conner, 68 yards. Looking at the 2 stars, Justin Jefferson, 7 grabs, 99 yards. Everybody else is relatively quiet. Jordan Addison had such a huge week last week. He comes in this week and is relatively quiet. Trey McBride, once again, still continues to be the number 1 option outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. He is just absolutely playing straight up out of his mind. He's got a total of 73 catches, 781 yards on the season. You know, he doesn't have a touchdown grab on the year, but he has been instrumental in getting this Arizona Cardinals offense and Kyler Murray down the field. You can see he really trusts him, especially on third down plays. And finally, we got to see the disappearing magician of Marvin Harrison Jr. He had a touchdown today. He had 5 catches for 60 yards. Not bad for a rookie campaign, but he's been up and down all season. You know, probably more than likely it's because teams have just shaded him so badly, and they're not allowing him to beat him. But he's got 7 scores on the year, 41 receptions for 606 yards. Probably not going to make that 1,000 yards, but he's got 7 touchdown grabs deceptively. But I think ultimately what's going to have to happen is they're going to have to get someone on the other side of him. And I think they'll probably address that because I think that's all they're missing, in my opinion. I think that is all that the Arizona Cardinals are missing is another guy to go on the other side of him. And you get him with McBride and whichever guy they decide to draft. This is going to be a good football team. It really is. And I think Kyler Murray's making some huge strides. His maturity has gotten better. And, you know, as far as the Vikings go, this is a game they kept their poise and they came back and they were able to get another win, and they go to 10-2, and they stay in this very crowded top atop the NFC North. The Cardinals fall to 6-6. Colts 25, Patriots 24. In a week where everything just seemed to come together for a lot of teams and then fall apart. Then you see teams rise and get these last-second wins, and this was one of those games. And believe it or not, the Patriots are a team, in my estimation. When I watch the Patriots, I look at a team and I say, goodness, they're so close. They are so close, and you can't say anything enough about the way Drake May has played. I'm impressed because I was a skeptic of Drake May. I felt like he was just another guy coming out of North Carolina that was going to be overrated. And yeah, I just did not buy into him. And right now I'm slowly buying into him because he was just a missed field goal away from winning this game. And even though it was a 68-yarder, I mean, you give a guy like Joey Slye an opportunity because when he was in Charlotte, he had a big leg. you give him that opportunity. And needless to say, Drake May, in my opinion, like I said, I think he is going to be the positive guy once he gets himself a reliable number one. And the question is being that Drake May is coming out of North Carolina, what do you want to pair him with? There's some decent receivers in this year's draft. I don't know if there's a true number one in this draft. I mentioned Travis Hunter, and I don't know. I'm just not sold on Travis Hunter as being a guy that could help the New England Patriots. They need, in my opinion, they need a big receiver. They really need a big receiver. And as far as the Colts go, once again, Anthony Richardson continues to have those games. If you were to start Anthony Richardson and he had the kind of game he had a couple of weeks ago where he just blew up the doors, and then you sit him on the bench, then you see him come back to life. He has not done well in consecutive games, and that has been a problem. 12-24, 109, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor ran 25 times for 96 yards. This was not an issue. They kept feeding him the football. And this is going to continue to be a problem as long as Richardson cannot throw the football. He added 48 yards on the ground and a touchdown. But unfortunately, him running the football is not what's going to win you games. I mean, it got you this one, arguably. I'm just of the belief that this guy's going to have to throw the football if they're going to be any semblance of a good football team. Not really much to add up at the end of it. You had Hunter Henry for the Patriots, 7 grabs for 75 yards. And Austin Hooper had 4 grabs for 42. So you're seeing Drake May being able to move the ball via the tight ends because he knows he has a limited supply at receiver position. So he utilizes what he has, which is his 2 tight ends. Great coaching, great way of looking at that between Jeremiah Mayo and his staff. But then you look at the tail of the tape, you've got the Patriots getting 3 more first downs and racking up 175 yards more than the Colts. So now you would ask, well, where did all this come from then? Well, the Patriots got 2 turnovers and they turned it over once. The problem you have is when you turn the ball over and you miss field goals. I mean, that's a huge deal. And when you get turnovers and you don't do anything with it, or you just kick field goals, as I said, and that's what we saw from the Patriots, is just kick field goals, kick field goals, kick field goals. And when you kick field goals, eventually the opposing team they're going to take you up on some of these freebies that you're giving them. And eventually the Colts did. So the Colts go to 6-7 and the Patriots fall to 3-10. And arguably some noise that I heard was that Jeremiah Mayo's seat was hot. I don't buy much into this. You got a rookie quarterback. You're on borrowed time. And honestly, you need another pick. The Patriots need to go from this Bill Belichick style of trading your first round pick to get more assets. Do I think you could in this situation? To me, this draft is not overly deep enough to do that. But if you want to do that, be my guest. I think you could benefit from finding a elite wide receiver to go with those 2 tight ends that you have to eat up things. You could even argue about getting a top-notch running back in the second round. I think Ramondre Stevenson's a good player, but I don't think, being a Carolina Panther fan, you've seen what Jonathan Brooks has already brought to the table. You can tell the difference between an elite running back and a garden variety back. Let's just say that. I think the Patriots need a home run hitter at tailback to go with, let's say they get a top-notch wide receiver. There's a couple of good wide receivers in this draft. Not saying there aren't, but to me, even Travis Hunter's a reach at the top 5. Yeah, I said it. A reach. Maybe I'll do a show and explain myself. Seahawks 26, Jets 21. In a game that could possibly be Aaron Rodgers' swan song as a Jet. Looking at this game for what it is, Aaron Rodgers, and I mean, I haven't listened to Stephen A. Smith's bite on this, but 21 of 39, 185. Brees Hall, 12 carries, 60 yards. Devontae Adams, 5 for 66. Garrett Wilson, 5 for 41. Yeah. And Brees had a lost fumble in this game as well. And you can't ask this defense to play any better than it did, even though it gave up. It gave up 19 points. Not counting Leonard Williams' 92-yard touchdown. You cannot do this. This is a big no-no if you're the Jets. Because the reality of it is, you have to be able to... Well, first thing you got to do is protect the ball. You get Zach Wilson out there to do what he did with Leonard Williams. I get it was a heck of a play, but the whole point is, you're Aaron Rodgers for a reason. You're supposed to make up for that. You haven't been able to do that, which is why the Jets are in a worse position than they were last season. That, coupled with the fact that you haven't been able to stop the run this year. Teams have taken a different approach at this Jets defense, and they're doing something that they could not do last year, which is score points on them. Geno Smith was 20 of 31, 206, was sacked 3 times, threw a touchdown, but here's the thing. Geno Smith was smart with the rock. Once again, I told y'all about Jackson Smith and Jigba, 4 for 74. DK Metcalf, 4 for 66. Can't play around. As the Seahawks are quietly 7-5. 7-5 as the Jets are descending. They're crash landing at this point. So, the only question is now is, do you shut down Aaron Rodgers?
Who cares?
You know what I think.
So,
Seahawks 26, Jets 21. Seahawks looking to wrap up a possible spot in the playoffs and get back towards a winning tradition. Commanders 42, Titans 19. Well, looking at the Commanders, they've had a rough patch here lately. If I recall correctly, they had lost 3 in a row. Daniels is back on his thing, going 25 of 30, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have an interception. Brian Robinson came back this week and had 103 yards on the ground for a score. Chris Rodriguez also tuned in for 94 yards. And when you can get out there and run the football like this and take the pressure off of Jaden Daniels, which they did, they were up like 28-7, and then you see Tennessee put 12 extra on there, and then the Commanders just came in the fourth quarter and said, "Oh, y'all want to score? Here, take that." Will Levis was 18 of 37, 2 touchdowns, 2 sacks, but unfortunately, this game got out of hand early. I think Dan Quinn had these guys just out here, and the Titans were trying to pull a upset as they did a week ago, and Washington shut the door on that quick. I mean, they killed that little bit right off the bat. As I said, this defense is really coming to play. They had an off game once again. Frankie Louisville cracking up another sack. Darryl Worley had 17 total tackles in this game for the Titans, and Kenneth Murray added 10 and a half sack in this game. So Tennessee's got some ball players. They just Arden Key had a sack and a half, so they've just got to get some things worked out. They can't run the football. They got to get it figured out. They're just one of those teams that one week they look like they got it together and they found their identity, and the next week you get this. Commanders 8-5, Titans fall to 3-9 as the Commanders continue to look upward in the NFC playoff picture. And then we got the Texans and the Jaguars, whom, as I said before, as a big C.J. Stroud fan, I am still wondering when is C.J. Stroud going to become the guy that he was last season. And, I mean, he wasn't nearly as, I don't want to say spaced out, but he literally was not that dude that he was last season. And this was the game where the melee happened because quarterback Trevor Lawrence was just absolutely rocked by Azeez Algier after Trevor Lawrence left the pocket and took off running, and it started a melee that lasted for a minute, and Azier had to be restrained and escorted off the field, and you hate to see that. I mean, the reality of it is, he got down, and like I said, players took exception to it. And like I said, I thought ultimately the officials were terrible at handling the situation. You got them throwing hats and this and that. Look, get your sorry behind in the middle of that. That's what you get paid for. You get in the middle of it. You out there throwing your hat as high as you can throw it. Really? But the order finally got restored. Then we got to see a game. Mixon had 100 yards and a touchdown after being missing in action for a couple of weeks because that offensive line just could not get it done. And it looked like the Texans were starting to show signs of vulnerability. And C.J. Stroud was able to throw 22 of 34, 242 and 2 touchdowns. But as long as Mixon's running the football well, this is a team that's well-rounded. Nico Collins had 8 grabs for 119. Dalton Schultz, 5 for 61 and a touch. Tank Dell had 1 grab for 23 yards. Mixon had 4 out of the backfield. And John Mechie followed up with 2. But then you saw Mac Jones come in and throw for 235 and 2 scores. Honestly, I was absolutely surprised at how well he played. And then Jacksonville did not give up a sack. Impressive considering the Texans were one of the top pass rushing units in all of the National Football League. Travis Etienne still struggling to get it going. He's got only 46 yards in this game. Parker Robinson's filled in nicely. Had 6 grabs for 103 yards and a touchdown. The little guy of second year got a Penn State. Brian Thomas added 4 grabs for 76 yards and a touchdown. Evan Ingram 7 for 41. So looking at the tail of the tape, the Jaguars made a run in the fourth quarter. They put up 14 in the fourth, and then the Texans had to slam the door shut and, send the Jaguars going hibernating. And that's pretty much where they are. They're one of the first teams that are going to be out of this division. And, yeah, the Jaguars, hopefully Trevor Lawrence is okay. Our prayers go out to him. And just to let you guys know that the Texans organization, as well as Aziz Algier, sent out an apology, and hopefully he gets better, and hopefully it's not a severe one. He is a hometown boy. He grew up around Cartersville, Georgia, north of where I live. He's one of the fan favorites here. He's referred to on this show as Pretty Boy. So most of the guys that are close to the show or family of the show, they know exactly what that means because we were fans of him when he was at Cartersville. So we wish him the best and in a speedy and safe recovery. Texans 23, Jaguars 20. The Texans go to 8-5. Next, we've got the Rams 21 and the Saints 14. As I reported to you earlier, the Saints lost quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver Taysom Hill for the remainder of the season with a torn ACL. This is huge considering he makes up a large portion of their offense of what they want to do on this team. You look at it, they had 5 more yards than the LA Rams. It all came down to a crucial 4th down play that they went for and they did not get it. Possession, Saints had it 5 more minutes. The Rams scored on all 3 of their red zone visits. All 3 of them. When you make good on them like that, that's a hard team to beat. Very difficult to beat. Everything was pretty much even when you look across the board. No turnovers. But the Saints had it longer. And really the difference in this game, arguably you can look at it and say it was that 4th down conversion that got turned backwards. And I think ultimately what Taysom Hill's injury did, I believe Taysom Hill's injury was the difference in this game. And I'll tell you why. Because on that 4th down, you bring him in the game. If you don't do nothing but put him in the backfield, you have to account for him. And down around the goal line, that's where the Saints are at their toughest. You get 2 plays where Taysom Hill's in the game, you have to account for him. If you don't account for him, he hurts you. And I ultimately believe that the Saints get in and then they go for 2. And unfortunately, when you look at the way the Rams have started to, let me just say this. The Rams are an up and down football team. There are weeks where it's like win, lose, win, lose. Their identity is, they haven't established it yet. And that's what I see. Kyren Williams ran for over 100 yards in this game, but he only carried the ball 15 times. Stafford threw it 24 times. And they scored 21 points. Really, the Rams were shut out in the first half. It was 6-0. It was 6-0. And you look at it, the Saints had long, sustaining drives. They started the game with a drive that lasted over 6 minutes, and all they got was a field goal. They forced them into a punt, and then they missed a field goal, which was huge because you think about it, it's 21-17, and no worries. Yet all they could muster was field goals. They finally did get on the scoreboard with a touchdown early in the fourth quarter. And then that doesn't help when you turn around and you give up a touchdown right back. But ultimately, the Saints have a lot of issues on offense. The offensive line is not crisp. Taysom Hill's 34. There's going to have to be a reckoning where you look and you say, okay, Taysom, we done gave you your dues. We'll give you one more year, and then we need to move on. Because I'm going to be honest with you, there are some guys out there that they have potential to be, I will tell you, a guy out of Notre Dame, Riley Leonard. I don't see why a lot of teams don't go to this Taysom Hill type thing. I mean, to me, it's a wonder. You bring him in, he's a tough runner. That's what he is. Too bad Taysom Hill showed up to the game a little later than most. I think it was, 26, 27 when he showed up. You know what they say about Sean Payton? He knows how to get the most out of him. The Rams go to 6-6. The Saints fall to 4-8 with the division still in question. Speaking of which, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26, the Carolina Panthers 23. And if you guys know, I have my All Access Carolina Panthers network. You guys want to check it out, please do. This game was a game that the Buccaneers would probably say, whew. But you look at the statistics and you wouldn't think that. Because, I mean, you look at this score and you think this is supposed to be a blowout. 27-19 in first downs, but then the Buccaneers were 2 of 12 on third down, and the Carolina Panthers were 6 of 16. Now, the reason being is because the Buccaneers were getting first downs on first and second down a large part of the time they were moving the football. The Bucs ran 9 more plays than the Carolina Panthers, and they put up almost 80 yards more than the Panthers. Then you look at the turnovers. You had two interceptions by Baker Mayfield, and then right there at the end, Chuba Hubbard. And as I said, I don't like when I hear people say when a guy just makes a good play, you call it a fumble. To me, this was not a fumble by Chuba Hubbard. This was just an absolutely great play by a good player who's becoming a great player. And Anthony Nelson. Anthony Nelson made the play of the game. This is a guy that came out, got his opportunity, and guess what? He saw this game was over. Because all the Panthers were going to do was going to run this clock out and set up for the kick. And what ultimately happened? Nelson comes in and makes a play. He comes in, makes a play, and saves the game for the Bucs. And needless to say, I'm of the belief that you don't just talk about the mistakes. You talk about the guys that cause the mistakes, that create the mistakes. And this was one of those where you got to give Nelson nothing but the credit. He reached in there. He didn't tackle Chuba Hubbard. He just grabbed the ball. So if anybody wants to give Chuba Hubbard the issue, or they want to give him the grief, go ahead. I'd like to see how many of you guys will hang on to the football when somebody just tackles it. And he came out of nowhere. Nelson came out of nowhere. If you watch that replay, he came out of nowhere. But Baker Mayfield got banged up in this game. And ultimately, in my opinion, what was the difference was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. They're going to stop the run first. They're not going to let you run the football. That is just the bottom line. You're going to run the ball with your quarterback is what you're going to do. Brooks had a few carries in his Carolina Panther debut. He had 18 yards on 6 carries. Chuba Hubbard, 43 out of 12. They pretty much had him bottled up the entire game. He was able to get a couple of yards. Adam Thielen was just a straight monster. 8 for 99 and 1. Score should have been more, but the officiating determined that they didn't have another angle. And guys, Adam Thielen's a guy that does not challenge anything. But he wanted this one challenged. And so when I see a guy like that says he wants this challenged, he caught it. And you can look at the replay and then you look at what you saw and it did not look like that ball moved. So needless to say, there are going to be a lot of people who say he should have caught it first. And guess what? When you're part of that, it's more difficult to catch it twice than it is to catch it the first time. So with that being said, that's a great win for the Buccaneers because now they're up there with the Atlanta Falcons. They've got a chance to get back to actually take over first place and win their 5th division crown in a row. And the Panthers are continuously building on Bryce Young's future and his confidence. He looked good yet again, 26 out of 46, 298 and a touchdown. I know the completion percentage does not look really great, but a lot of his throws were throwaways. So if that was to become a statistic, he'd be pretty darn good. There was a couple of throws he missed, but for the most part, he was on point. Eagles 24, Ravens 19. Now, I want to address my lovely Ravens fans. Now, I heard all of y'all talk about Deontay Johnson. Talk about how he's that dude.
Bruh.
How he can do this and do that. I'm still waiting on him to make a small impact. Teensy weensy little impact. Something.
Not funny, Ed.
I mean, all this hate I got.
Shut up!
Y'all sitting here at 8-5. Ain't got nothing to do with your receiving core. I believe Tom Monken wants to get removed. I think it's about time to hit it. Oh, yeah. I think it's time to hit the panic button in Baltimore. Because here's the truth and the reality. Once again, when you sit here and you look at this team, Jackson went 23 of 36, 237, 2 touchdowns, was sacked 3 times. But that's not what alarms you. Henry had 19 carries, 82 yards. And I said on my show he needs to have 85 yards or 20 carries. Look at Lamar Jackson. 8 carries, 79 yards. That's pretty good. Ain't good enough. I don't know when y'all going to listen to Mr. CeeLo and realize y'all are a running football team. Somebody needs to call up Mumpkin and say, what are you doing? Just pay the price. Saquon Barkley goes for 100 again, 107 and 1 to be exact. And he just continues to assert himself in this MVP race. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens continue to put Derrick Henry out of this race and trying to uplift Lamar Jackson so badly that they're pushing him downward. You about to let Saquon Barkley run away with this MVP. I mean, the only person that's right now in the same vicinity as him is going to be Josh Allen or Super Josh or Cake Josh. You know, Cake.
Bruh.
But the Philadelphia Eagles are continuously doing what they do, and they're quietly getting it done. They are quietly 10-2. The NFC is finally starting to look like they got some swagger. Not swagger, some swagger. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And believe it or not, they got to get this figured out. And I'm referring to Baltimore. Because for you to be playing at home and the Eagles, you get up on the Eagles 9-0. And this is the other thing. The Ravens got not necessarily bigger problems. I know everybody's going to say, you're talking stupid. Justin Tucker missed those kicks. Okay. You do realize that those kicks are on the board, and you take away that jump touchdown that you scored, which, by the way, the Philadelphia Eagles wasn't going to let you just run down the field and score on them if it was a one-score game, right? I think the issue with Justin is it's in his head. And I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, duh, kicking is in your head. But a lot of it is, why are the Ravens so big on his leg? I mean, that's something the Carolina Panthers have to live by. You're not a bad football team. You're the highest scoring offense in the league. Why are you dependent upon your kicker for 6 points? Right? I'm just saying, you Ravens fans are sitting there talking about, oh, Justin Tucker's missing kicks. You ain't looking like the high octane offense anymore either. Just saying. Because you should have brought that same energy with the Eagles. And all this talk about the defense is not what it was. Well, you held a pretty Hold on, let me show you something. Jalen Hurts, 118. Saquon, 107. But this Ravens defense gave up a grand total today of 252 yards. So tell me how this is the defense's fault. I want to know. Now, they didn't generate any turnovers, but the Ravens had the ball 33 minutes. I can tell you how. Y'all got in the red zone twice and then scope. Y'all got in the red zone 5 times, then scope it twice. You didn't score touchdowns. Doesn't matter how many times you go in there. What you trying to do? Play Pittsburgh Steeler ball? Is that what we doing now? Got to get it together. And there's talk that they talking about releasing Tucker. I don't think so. That would be suicide this late in the year. Eagles 24, Ravens 19. As the Eagles go to 10-2, the Ravens fall to 8-5. And the Sunday nighter was just a laugher, but it wasn't a laughing matter when Christian McCaffrey came up limp and went to the ground. Something I was familiar with seeing when he went down in week 3 back when he was a Carolina Panther with a non-contact injury. It turned out to be I think it was a 9-week-long hamstring issue, and then it turned out to be 7-week. And then it turned out he's got a torn PCL, which they effectively put him on IR, which basically is going to end his season in a nutshell, saying, the least. And then they also ended up putting running back Jordan Mason on IR as well. They both ended. I mean, McCaffrey was having a good night against this Buffalo defense. Now, the score wouldn't be reflective of it. They were down 21-3 at the half, and it just got really brutally ugly, especially after Mason got out of there. I mean, this was a tough game on snow, but I'll tell you this, it benefited the running backs more than anything else, as Cook went for 107 and a score. Ray Davis went for 63 on 11 carries. Josh Allen himself was 13-17, 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. But needless to say, I think this effectively puts the San Francisco 49ers playoff hopes on life support. I think ultimately without Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, this is I don't see it. And your defense is not that locked down D that you've had before. That Robert Saleh defense that you had. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers rehired him next season and see if you can't get some of that energy back. But you had 3 fumbles on the night for the 49ers, so that did not help. Needless to say, they just got to get better. And honestly, I think the injuries have killed them. There's been a lot of teams that's happened to, and the 49ers are just a perfect example of it. The Buffalo Bills are racking it in, and they're playing at their peak when they need to be. And unfortunately for everybody in the league, even the Kansas City Chiefs, everybody's seen this before. Question is, can the Bills make it happen when it counts? That's the question that everybody is going to present. Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, and the Buffalo Bills. Let me know what you guys think as the Bills take the 49ers 35-10. Hope you guys are safe after this holiday weekend. Looking forward to getting the shopping done as we get done with Cyber Monday. Make sure you comment down below if you subscribe to the show. Make sure you put your first name down, or if your whole name, if you're comfortable with that. Also, leave your comments on whichever game you thought I got wrong or whichever game you have comments about. Also, go to our Facebook page at G2PS on Facebook. Of course, that's Gridiron Gab Pro Style. And let us know what you think about the content. Also, go there to find out what other shows we've got on there and what polls we might have up there, pictures and whatnot. Also, go hit me up at Mr. CeeLo on Instagram. Find out what all the other shows I'm involved in and what other things I may be involved in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.